everybody. I'm Lisa Bloom.
And I'm Sarah Bloom. And today we're going to talk about, can I be fired for supporting Black Lives Matter? The recent Black Lives Matter movement and protests over the death of George Floyd may be the largest social movement in U.S. history. Recent polls indicate that anywhere from 15 to 26 million people have participated in these protests in the last few weeks. In the U.S. alone, there have been an average of 140 protests a day, 4,700 total since the murder of George Floyd.
Wow. And according to the Pew Research Center, 67% of Americans say they support the Black Lives Matter movement, and that certainly includes us. And 7 in 10 Americans say they have had a conversation about race in the past month with friends and family.
But we can't forget that we're also in the middle of the coronavirus and businesses are starting to reopen. So, what does this mean for protester employees coming back to work? Can their employer treat them differently because they went to a protest?
Important point. Contrary to popular belief, research has proven that protests are not linked to a spike in COVID-19 cases. And that's mostly because the protesters have been outside wearing masks and they keep moving. Really, it's people who have been having parties inside without masks who have been causing the spread.
And that's great, important news. And that's what I've seen when I've been to protests too. So today we're going to talk about protesters' First Amendment rights in the workplace and whether employees have the right to wear Black Lives Matter apparel at the office. So first topic, protesters' rights in the workplace.
So a common misconception is that the First Amendment allows Americans to say whatever we want, whenever we want. That's not true. While the First Amendment does give us all the right to protest, it's really about the government acting against those who exercise that right.
That's right. So government employers are barred from retaliating against workers who protest, but this does not apply to private employers. So the First Amendment does not protect employees from retaliation from private employers who take action against them.
However, certain states like California and New York, where we practice, prohibit employers from retaliating against employees who engage in political or lawful recreational activities after work hours.
So that means in California and New York, it's illegal to fire someone for protesting. And actually in South Carolina, it's a misdemeanor to fire an employee who exercises their political rights.
Wow.
So that means it's important to check your individual state's laws or speak to an employment attorney if you think you've been discriminated against in the workplace because you went to a protest. So second topic, Black Lives Matter apparel.
So some people have been using their COVID masks as a form of individual expression, and some employees are choosing to use that canvas to support Black Lives Matter.
Some employers have already come out and banned Black Lives Matter gear, like Whole Foods and Starbucks. Starbucks later reversed the ban after public backlash. A former Taco Bell manager said he was fired after he refused to remove a Black Lives Matter mask. So Lisa, what's the law on this?
Well, companies are allowed to have a dress code, but they are not allowed to enforce the dress code in a racially discriminatory way. In other words, if the company allows some exceptions to its dress code, especially for other forms of political speech, it cannot selectively choose to ban Black Lives Matter gear. So, for example, you talked about Starbucks. Starbucks was criticized for banning Black Lives Matter masks because it had allowed employees to wear apparel in support of marriage equality and the LGBT movement.
Additionally, wearing a Black Lives Matter mask and speaking out against racial injustice at the office potentially could be seen as opposing discrimination in the workplace, which would protect the employee from retaliation. Also, under the National Labor Relations Act, this could be seen as protected concerted activity in speaking out against working conditions, which is also protected as long as you do that with one other person. So, if you and one other person at the office are wearing a Black Lives Matter mask, that could be seen as protected concerted activity under the National Labor Relations Act.
Very smart, Sarah. All right, to summarize, companies may be permitted to take some action against protesters, depending on what state you're in, and against people wearing Black Lives Matter masks. But employees should always be on alert if their employer is doing that in a discriminatory manner.
If you think your rights have been violated, you should contact an employment lawyer like the Bloom Firm immediately. To contact us, go to our website, www.thebloomfirm.com.
And we can give you a free and confidential consultation remotely. We are always very happy to hear from you.
Until next time, stay strong and stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.